Welcome back. Still on inflation, and today we're moving on to the relationship between inflation and interest rates. What is the relationship between inflation and interest rates? Inflation and interest rates tend to move in the same direction because interest rates are the primary tool used by most central banks to manage inflation. Do we get that? Okay, let me tip us some takeaways. Interest rates tend to move in the same direction as inflation, but with lags, because interest rates are the primary tool used by central banks to manage inflation. In the US, the Federal Reserve targets an average inflation rate of 2% over time by setting a range of its benchmark federal funds rate, the interbank rate on overnight deposits. Higher interest rates are generally a policy response to rising inflation. Conversely, when inflation is falling and economic growth slowing, central banks may lower interest rates to stimulate the economy. How changes in interest rates affect inflation? I'll explain when the Federal Reserve responds to elevated inflation risks by raising its benchmark federal funds rate. It effectively increases the level of risk-free reserves in the financial system, limiting the money supply available for purchases of riskier assets. Conversely, when a central bank reduces its target interest rate, it effectively increases the money supply available to purchase risk assets. Let us take note that rising interest rates signal the likelihood that the central bank will continue to tighten monetary policy, further tamping down inflation expectations. Let's take a look at this chart. I hope we can see this clearly. What are the problems with using interest rates to control inflation? As the chart above shows, policymakers often respond to changes in economic outlook with a lag, and their policy changes, in turn, take time to affect inflation trends. Are the inflation rate and interest rate linked? Yes. The Federal Reserve attempts to control inflation by raising interest rates. Therefore, if the former rises, so does the latter in response. What are the current inflation and interest rates? The inflation rate at the end of April 2023 was 4.9%. The interest rate, as of May 3, 2023, was in the range of 5% to 5.25%.